We're at the design table, but we talked a lot about how arts are working together with other industries, and specifically we really want to see arts come to the table at the beginning of projects, both with STEAM and STEM, and then also with incorporating art into public spaces. So how can we start that process and work in a united way?
Outstanding summary and some great ideas. Who's next? The always hard to define creative industry support services. Maybe you can tell me what that means.
We support folks. We talked about.
I didn't really know that.
We've basically been talking about how we can be collaborating in terms of what we all can bring to the table and coming together with the common denominator. And the things we talked about, for example, is how people move into communities and displace people, and that can build up resentment, whereas there's an opportunity for both of those entities to come together and collaborate. Like, for example, the folks that are moving into an area, they don't know the history of the area that they're moving into. The people that are already in the area, they know the community. So you come together, and ideally, if you're having a ongoing conversation, you end up with a win-win scenario. You also end up building new relationships. You're able to bring resources together to bear, and hopefully you all will see the need of being able to coexist and come up with additional funding.
There's always that. Thank you. And there's a second creative industry support service table. Anyone want to step up? Oh, Katie. Hi, Katie.
So we're the second half of the creative industry support services, and our conversation started by talking about how to pair physical spaces with programming efforts, whether that is redesigning physical spaces for accessibility, or whether that's finding homes for creative individuals who are looking for a space to do their work. And then our conversation morphed over to communication and the increasing value that the ability to communicate clearly will have in these cross-collaborative projects, because they're new and because they involve a variety of disciplines and a variety of jargon. And so we will need the ability to develop a common language and common terms that comes across very clearly and communicates the relevance of these new projects that are being done.
An example of nice, clear communications right there. Thank you, Katie. Since we're talking about communication, somebody from the, oh, Brett, I somehow I was going to come out and guess that. There you go.
Okay, so we'll keep this very brief. One of the interesting things, they did very creative and communicative to the table, and we had many arts organizations present. We discovered that collaboration is essentially a consistent presence in really the heart of arts and community. And that is something that seems very natural at our table. That success and collaboration comes from authenticity and clarity. That the hardest part is essentially lawyers and bureaucracy. And sorry about that. And at the end of the day, what brings it all together is food. And that food right now was the missing partner at the table in this room, and something to think about because it is a necessary collaborator, and the kitchen is where everything happens.
What, you didn't like the food? Is that what you said?
As a collaborator.
Oh, got it. Just kidding. I'm walking here. Ooh. Data science, big data, community, well, that'll take too long. Here you go. Oh, Crystal, you have that look, don't you? Yeah, please.
Okay, so we started out talking about how the foundations in government and the grant makers can better help grantees do better about the data management. And essentially, the collaborations we think are necessary are involved in collecting data, gathering it, doing the analysis, and making the data available to people. And what's needed for that collaboration to happen is to have better policies and programs in place, to do more experiments through risky pilot programs, but risk-taking is where collaborative innovation happens. And we also think that we need more partnerships, like people who can share valuable expertise, and people with the technology expertise to make some of these dreams possible. And at the end, we also talked about the fact that collaboration requires capacity, and you need someone to actually help increase the collaborative process, and that we should find better ways to create capacity for the analysis and the planning that data use requires.
All right. Amen to all of that. Great. The software and hardware table, yes? Oh, Matthew, please share.
Well, we all came to the table because we all wanted to learn something about software and hardware and how to implement that. But none of us are in software and hardware, so we learned nothing. So, in lieu of learning anything, I'm just going to talk about something that I would love to have happen personally, and maybe someone afterwards can tell me how this would work. I'm a performing musician, and what I would love to have happen is I would love to play a piece of music and have a robot that hears what I'm playing and translates what it hears into a painting. And at the end of which then people could buy the painting. And in addition to that, I think it would be great to have an actual person painter painting while the robot paints and compare those two things. And I think that would be very interesting to see what happens. Thank you very much.
We did talk about how there are some very interesting things happening with technology in the performing arts, but they seem to come late to the performances, so that we were in favor of having those support systems starting with the rehearsals, so that, the best, I used Quantum Theater as a great example of soundscapes, because their soundscape artists are there from day one of rehearsals. So you don't even notice sometimes what's happening because it's being done really well. Whereas too often we go and what we see in hardware is somebody doesn't know how to plug in a microphone, and that's the extent. So we need to have better collaboration with the technology people early on to make headway with software and hardware.
That's great. I hear a theme developing, and that was said earlier on. So outstanding collaboration, great, but from moment one. So, Carl, you were identified as the spokesperson. So we have about a minute here. So what do y'all talk about?
Well, it was very interesting just where we were sitting, because we had somebody from PCTV, as well as community television, and somebody from filmmakers, and we were talking about this pathway to how do you get, community television started here in Pittsburgh, and they were trying to really engage the communities, and you need to have some training, and filmmakers have the Filmmaker Intensive program that's really geared towards that type of stuff, so it's easier than ever, and of course has their own classes. So on the other side were people saying, how do I get in? And I think we all decided we have to be clear on how we can do pathways in, and also just to relate back to the communications table, it's interesting because that where, but we also agreed that food was the huge